Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Nothing happened with the fire, though.
You were waiting for something to jump out?
Absolutely. A ghost to come by. I thought I was watching the Netflix. Like, you remember when Netflix had that thing where they just put chicken on a rotisserie and let it go, or they just had the thing and they were like trolling their watchers? Anyone ever watch that?
No.
It's
No.
like fire for 3 hours.
Well, that original video, well, first of all, something did pop out, us, which is terrifying. And also I will say that when I found that that fire, it's 11 hours long, so able to cut it down a bit.
StreamYard didn't like it being 11 hours long, so we had to cut it down to a minute. So
if you'd made me wait 11 hours to start the stream, I would have left.
No, you wouldn't have.
No, I wouldn't have. I'm very patient.
Has anyone ever seen the there's like a 4-hour video of what's his name from Parks and Rec, the guy who plays Nick Offerman, just sipping whiskey for 4 hours, and then like at one point he puts a log on the fire and that's all that happens. It's good.
Incredible. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our spooky October Friday the 13th October spooky special. I don't know. I always mix up how I wanted to say that, but essentially this stream idea came about a couple weeks ago when somebody in a meeting at Reclaim was like, hey guys, did you know that it's Friday the 13th this month and it's October? And we were like, wow, that's so cool. And then we had the idea of, Friday is the day that we try to stream here at Reclaim. Why don't we do a special stream where we talk about something kind of on theme, and had the idea of maybe swapping some scary tech stories that we have. And I think that everyone has these where we all get a little bit spooked, creeped out by something that happens. Actually, typically it's, you just get scared that you mess something up. And I have heard some stories of people finding ghosts in the machine. I don't have anything like that today, but there's all sorts of different ways you can be scared by technology. And I think that lots of folks can relate to that. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to keep it super casual and super spooky. So does anybody want to go first? Or I know that Jim is kind of on the move, so maybe it's Jim.
That would be good. I am on the move a little bit, but I didn't want to miss this because I do want to tell a scary story. Can you all hear me well? Is it good?
Loud and clear.
Okay. So it's a scary story that links, and I probably told some of you, it's kind of like Reclaim lore at this point. So this is back in 2014. Tim had been figuring out and integrating all of our Domain of One's Own servers. And I was on kind of the front end support / getting people interested and doing a lot of that. So I didn't really, and that might be reflected in this morning, I didn't really know as much as I might have about the back end. And then Tim's finally like, he's been working his ass off for like 2 years. And he's like, I'm going on vacation, right? I'm going to Disneyland. We only had a couple of maybe Oklahoma, Emory, and Channel Islands. And there might have been one more. And he's like, I'm going to go away. I kind of really want to back off. So you just watch these servers. Nothing should be happening, but if anything happens, just restart the server. I knew how to do that. So I was like, no problem, Tim, go. Have a great vacation. I'll see you in a week. 6 hours later, I'm in my den in Fredericksburg, and I'm checking out things, and then I get a ticket in, and it's like, Emory's like, our server's down. I'm like, oh, shit, okay. I'll just reset the server. I reset the server, I restart the server, and he had the home file where all the cPanel servers were symlinked into the main directory on the server. So it was a kind of a different setup. I didn't realize there was a symlink. So when I reset it, everything was gone. And the admin emailed me back 5 minutes later. It's like, there's nothing there. I'm like, what? It's online. Look, I checked everything. No, all of our files are gone. Like, gone. I was like, what? This is my first real sysadmin moment. And so, as much as I didn't want to, I had Tim pulled over right near south of the border on the I-95, heading down and troubleshooting my problem. He couldn't figure it out because he was on his phone. So I had to call someone else, a friend, Joe McMahon, to be like, dude, you have to. He's like, dude, it's just a Symlink. Fixed. Everything back to normal. But that was probably at the moment where I was like, after that, like, why am I doing this again? Like, what business do I have to run a hosting company?
How
And
many
that's my
times? Wow,
scary
that
story.
is terrifying. How many times did you wake up in a cold sweat after that?
I didn't reset a server for a year. And my therapist was like, it's time. I'm like, I can't.
Wow.
You can't make me.
That's some way to start this off. That's pretty terrifying. Thank you, Jim. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your travels to scare the pants off us with that opening story.
When you reset a server today, remember me.
We will. In
I hope
memory of Jim.
not to.
R.I.P. Bye, Jim.
Oh, what a way to kick things off.
Everybody okay?
No.
Speaking of cold sweats, this happened to me this week. I realized I didn't email someone back and I'm dead asleep and jolted awake and was like, I didn't ever send that email. So I like quickly ran over to send it out for server maintenance and everything. And it's not a fun feeling. It's super scary.
It's
No.
also scary to send an email and receive an email in the middle of the night, the dead of night. So.
Yeah. I just realized this is Jason's first stream. We really should actually introduce Jason.
That's
I feel
the scariest thing
bad.
of all.
Yeah. The scariest thing is we didn't introduce him. So Jason's the newest member of the Reclaim team. Is this your second week? Is that right? Yeah. So Jason, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself quick, but yeah, we're happy to have you here. Oh, audio's not working. I suppose this is first of all, peeling the curtain back, Jason. These are never super polished, so this is okay. But we may have to have you check audio settings and introduce yourself a little bit.
How about
later.
Oh, perfect. There you
I
go.
heard you.
All right. It's always new program. It goes to the default settings and doesn't use my mic. So, well, thank you all for having me here. I'm excited to be here. My very first stream. Yeah, for all of you out there in streaming world, my name is Jason, and I'm new to the team. I'm one of the new support specialists, and I've been working with support and WordPress and hosting for a long time now. So I'm happy to be part of the Reclaim team and bring all that experience and fun stuff here.
Cool. Yeah. So. I mean, I've got a couple, but I one of them is a good one, and the other ones are not so good. I'll just say so. But yeah, who wants to go next? Who else has got a spooky story?
How about I'll go next because mine's not very long and it's not very, I mean, I'm downplaying it. I'm going to say a lot of people probably aren't going to think this is as scary as it was, but to me, it was absolutely terrifying. So for those of you who don't know, returned recently from maternity leave. I gave birth to my son back in June and was able to take a nice long break with him. And I really leaned into that maternity leave. I didn't crack my work computer one time. I was just in babyland, for better, for worse. And then I'm approaching the end of my maternity leave. I was like feeling prepared. I'm feeling good. I had a plan to come back kind of part-time for a week or two, just kind of dip my toes back in. And I get a couple text messages from Lauren saying, oh, if you could just check in on this or that before you come in, it'll help things. I think, okay, how about while the baby's sleeping this morning, I'm going to grab my laptop and just do a quick, look around. And so I open my laptop and I poise my fingers over the keyboard, ready for that muscle memory to kick in of my password to get into my work computer. And it had been almost 3 months since I had done this. And all of a sudden, my fingers didn't move. And I just stared at the keyboard and I thought, oh my God, I've forgotten my password. The most important password probably that I have, one of the most, top 5. And I didn't have it saved anywhere because it was something that I had I would type that password in every day. Because I shut down my computer every day. So I open it up and I have to type in my password. I would type it in when it would go to sleep. I had this password in my soul and it was gone from my brain. And I kept trying. I tried, oh my God, probably like 20 times. I'm like, come on, muscle memory. Come on, you can do it. And it just wouldn't work. And so I closed the laptop and I let that sit for a couple days because I was so freaked out. And again, I wasn't back yet, but I was leading up to it. And so long story short of all this time and that I just was like, nope, I'm not addressing that. I finally broke and I reached out to Apple support and I thought there's no way they're going to be able to help me. I've royally messed this up. I'm going to lose everything on my computer. This is not a great way to come back after maternity leave. And then they were great and taught me how to reset my password from the terminal and I was back in and the wave of relief was unlike any other. And so luckily this has a happy ending and I was able to get into my computer, but it was absolutely terrifying in the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, I bet. And especially, I guess, for perspective for anyone watching, like, we're a completely remote company. We do not like call each other. Like, I mean, we have like company has phone numbers in case of like emergencies, I guess, but like
we have each other's phone numbers for like if we go on a company trip or something.
Yeah.
And we need to be like, okay, in a pinch, can I text Meredith and be like, hey, I'm completely lost.
All of our interaction is in Slack. And
Yeah.
so like if you don't have access to your work computer, and I don't know if you have Slack on your phone. Some of us do, some of us don't. But yeah, you just be like, I don't know how to even tell them I'm having a problem. So.
Oh yeah. Yep. I mean, luckily I did have communication with folks because I had things installed in other places, but and I didn't even really have anything. I mean, most of what our work involves is on the web. So it wasn't the end of the world if I had to wipe my computer, but I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a fun way to come back.
Yep. But it all worked out.
That is pretty spooky.
Yeah.
Your story reminds me of a recurring dream. I haven't had it in a long time, but I used to have a recurring dream where I'd be in high school and I would go to my locker and I would just stand there and I couldn't remember the combination to my locker. And I would have that dream. It was just like this on repeat thing. It was that, and then another dream where I never graduated college. Like I thought I graduated and I hadn't. So then like I couldn't have a job and I couldn't proceed with my life as planned because I hadn't actually graduated. But yeah, that jogged my memory for that dream. I used to have that dream all the time. I'd just be standing there. I had no way to get in. I had no way to get any of my stuff. And I would just be standing there knowing that I should know it and not being able to get into my locker. So yeah, I'd forgotten about that until this very moment.
Those are the worst.
Yeah.
If you need any tools to deal with the locker thing, you could imagine that your lockers are like the lockers at my high school, in which you don't need to know the combination. If you just kind of shake the handle a little bit, it'll just come open. So
There you go.
Even better. I didn't have a ton of scary stories in mind because I forget all my mistakes, what few that I make. Except that this morning, Amanda briefly described what she was going to tell us, like not what the ending was or anything like that, but earlier when she was pitching the stream. And I'm really glad that she did because this morning I rocked up to my computer, started booting it up, and went, "Oh man, I get to hear the end of Amanda's story about how she got locked out of her computer." Put in my password and it didn't work. Tried it 9 more times and it didn't work. Started rebooting my computer over and over, didn't work. I do have Slack installed on my phone, so I was just like, "Hey Amanda, so how did you fix this?" And Amanda was very kind and sent me a walkthrough, and my computer was still not behaving, and it took me I got started 45 minutes late because of how long it took to get my computer to admit that I needed to reset my password.
I think Amanda's story is kind of like The Ring, where it's like once you hear it or see it, like it infects you. Because I had the same thing. She told the brief overview of her story the other day, and then I've been using my old desktop setup, and I went to log into the laptop that you all very nicely sent me, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know the password. Like I just set one when I was setting up the computer, and for some reason I used one that's different from every other password I used to access every other computer I own, and promptly forgot it and was going through all the things. And yeah, eventually I got to the point where I was about to reinstall all the software, and then it showed me my password hint. And luckily I made a good hint and was able to get in. But yeah, it took me about half an hour of clicking around different Apple settings and trying to find it. I was like, man, Amanda just she got me. Her story got me.
Everyone's got password hiccups.
Yeah.
It's contagious. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hopefully those of you out on the stream do not have the same problem.
So I have one that is going to shake some of our customers' faith in me working at a hosting company. So that's good.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, this is for perspective. This is high school for me. This is I believe it would have been near the end of my junior year of high school, and I have been enjoyed tinkering and learning about computer stuff as long as I can remember, pretty much. In high school, the computer that I used to do homework and stuff, anything, I guess, was a family desktop, because that's what you did at that time. But it was pretty old. So it was very slow. I was constantly trying to learn how I could make it not be so slow, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And my dad had a work for his work. He had a work desktop, of course, but he also had a laptop. For some background, at this point, my dad was a police officer. He was captain of the Brown County Jail, so he was kind of in charge of the jail, pretty relatively high ranking. It was him, and then above him was the sheriff. So, but anyway, so sometimes if there was something that was just not working on our old computer, he would log into his work laptop, and I could use that for an hour or whatever. But he'd be like, yeah, don't do your Taylor stuff with this. Don't change anything, right? This is my work laptop. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? I'm not an idiot. So anyway, I'm using this our family desktop. I use it quite a bit, but like I said, it's pretty slow, and I'm always trying to figure out how I can, make it feel not so slow. It was a pretty old machine, was the long and short of it. But I've been talking to someone at school, a friend of mine, who was like, well, my older brother, he's a developer, and he installs Linux on all of our old machines to make it faster. And I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe I'll do that on this desktop, not my dad's work laptop, this desktop, because, that might be a good solution here. And I, at this point, have no experience with Linux. Now I use it literally every day, right? For Reclaim stuff, all the servers and everything. But I was smart enough to know, okay, I can't just install it. That would wipe what's on the computer. So what I want to do is I want to boot it up and try it, and then install it a dual boot or something like that. And I'm doing all this research, right? You're a high schooler, so you kind of have like all the time. And like this didn't happen in one day. This happened over weeks. And I'm trying to figure out like what paths I should go here and what I can do. And I found like, okay, well, I need to like make a thing that I can boot off of. And at that time, you'd either like write a CD or a DVD or burn or put it on a USB flash drive. This computer was too old to boot up from a USB flash drive properly. And I did not have any CDs and DVDs. And I did not want to ask to buy any CDs and DVDs because I did not want to tell my parents what I was doing because I knew they'd be like, why? You're going to mess something up. They might have been right. And so my solution was, well, my dad has this work laptop that is new that I could use to boot off of a USB. This old desktop that we own does not have that capability. It's too old to do that. So my thought was, what I can do is use this special Linux distribution I read about called Puppy Linux, where you actually make a bootable flash drive that has all your files and stuff on it, basically. And then you can plug it into any computer. And if you have a computer that doesn't have the capability to boot off of that, you can actually make a floppy disk to boot up from it. And this computer was old enough to still have a floppy drive. And we had floppies in the house because like, in the basement. I was like, I can use one of those. So my plan was make the bootable floppy thing, set up Puppy Linux using my dad's work laptop. But good news, I'm smart. I'm not going to touch the work laptop itself, any of the files on it, because this is all happening on a USB drive, right? So I proceed with the plan. I'm doing this. My parents aren't home at this time, very crucially. Because I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to mess anything up, right? So none of this is even touching my dad's actual software on his computer, right? So I booted up from this. Looking back, I'm kind of amazed that I could boot it from another thing, like that the computer wasn't locked down to that extent. But this was 2009, so maybe they just didn't do that. But anyway, I did, and I'm preparing this flash drive and installing the thing on it. And one of the things you have to do is you have to erase the flash drive, right? Because you're going to install Linux onto it. So I'm doing that. I'm erasing the flash drive from a Linux environment. So I kind of don't fully know what I'm doing, but it seems pretty easy. There's like a GUI. I'm not having to use a terminal for this. And I hit erase, and I'm like setting up Puppy Linux on it, and things are going well. And then I'm like, cool. Okay, so I'm going to try this out now. So I shut the laptop down, pull the USB drive out, and sorry, I don't shut the laptop down. I pull the USB drive out and I don't shut the laptop down. And I notice, I go, oh, well, I probably should have shut it down before pulling the drive out. And I go, why is it still working? It should be booted off of this drive, right? And what I figured out is I did not erase the flash drive. I erased the hard drive in the laptop, my dad's work computer. And just like that, you ever have that like feeling where you just like feel melting? You're like, oh no. And so I like put the flash drive down. I reboot the machine. Bam, boots right up to Linux. Nothing plugged into it. And I go, oh no, I have not only have I wiped my dad's laptop, it's my dad's work laptop. He is a police officer. And he's going to have to go to his IT department and be like, my son did this, right? Yeah, so that's my first experience with Linux. And I'll just say he was not very happy with me.
Oh my God.
And that, like I'm sure he went to his IT department and just said, like, hey, my son did this. To be clear, I removed Linux off of it. I would prefer to deliver the thing empty than with alternate software on it. But yeah, that's the time I wiped a Brown County Sheriff's Department owned laptop. And I got the fear of God in me. And now I know the difference between /dev SDA and /dev SDB. Those are Linux file system things. SDA, that's usually the primary hard drive on a computer. And if you don't know, you check. You don't just guess.
Can't be that big of a difference, right?
It's fine. It's the same thing,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep.
Like a one character difference, but how much could it be?
Mhm.
Taylor, that is absolutely terrifying. I am impressed that you continued to go down this path. Maybe it was
Took a while.
well, maybe it was your your white whale. I need to make sure that I never that I learned from this. But yeah, that's pretty terrifying. Was he able to get anything back?
Oh no. Well,
no, I didn't think so.
No, but it wasn't his primary work computer, right? So he had whatever files that were immediately on there. No, those were gone. But most stuff they had on his desktop, and actually in that kind of environment, even at that time, most of the files they had that were important were on like a file share that the sheriff's department had. So they weren't even stored on the computers normally.
So it could have been worse, is what I'm hearing.
Not a lot, but yeah.
You didn't lead to like evidence being
Well,
erased,
he wouldn't have
murders
had that
going
kind of
free.
thing on there,
Yeah.
and I couldn't get into the computer, right? Like, to be clear, like this is not a thing that, right? Like I didn't know his password for his login for Windows, so like I couldn't get to that stuff, right? The files actually on the computer. I erased it and then installed something on top of it, so that there wasn't a risk of me getting access to or tampering files that I couldn't or shouldn't. And now it's been long enough that I feel comfortable telling this to the few people that will read it. But yeah, it's not great. Not a great thing.
Gotta be a statute of limitations about it.
Who knows?
Maybe that's like the one thing where there isn't.
I don't know that it was technically a crime, but yeah.
I have a couple one migration story of so we all know Reclaim offers migration assistance depending on where you're coming from, if you're working with WordPress, different applications, but we can move files from one location to another for you. And I just started working with migrations really on my own, and I'm going through and put the files, so it's a manual migration, so I'm taking the files and the database separately to move them to the new location, and I get everything uploaded. And it was a WordPress site. I was trying to remember what application it was, and everything's working, but nothing's loading. Like it's just a blank white screen, and that's also a heart-stopping moment because it was actually a pretty large site, like maybe like 10 15 gigabytes worth of data, so definitely a big migration. And for some reason I deleted the backup from the server as I was migrating the zip from the server as I'm migrating over.
Yeah, because you're migrating it. You don't need that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh goodness, I have a white screen. I can't retry. I can't do anything. And I pull in Chris, our infrastructure guru, and he goes, "It's permalinks, Meredith. It is always permalinks." So my whatever setting happened in the database, they switched over the way that the URLs were working, and I couldn't see the site to be able to switch out the permalink settings. And then that is where I learned the very handy search and replace feature in the database. So heart-stopping moment that I had lost all of their content, years worth of work just for a permalink.
Yikes.
Have you ever rsync something backwards? Sorry, that's where I thought this was going first. Has anyone ever done that? So it's
I
like
don't touch rsync. I know my
is-
limits.
Gotcha. You can do this with CP too, like just copying files. It's source, then destination. Sometimes get them backwards. And terminal never asks twice, right? So if you're like, copy the old thing over on the top of the thing I want to keep, it'll be like, cool. So Anyway, sorry, Jason.
Oh no, that's okay. I was just gonna say my scary story is also about losing lots of content and yeah. So I was working in. I have a history. My history is in WordPress. I work a lot with WordPress sites for the last decade or so, and we had a university where the new president of the university was leaving his. You know, he was the head of the department. He was now becoming president of the university. So the assembly wanted to switch the domain of his site, which was very. We just spun up a brand new site. We domain mapped his domain that he wanted onto his new site, and I just had to clone using this very handy dandy clone feature, clone that site to the new site. Really easy, except for the fact that the cloner just wouldn't work, right? Like it wasn't working. Like 90% of the stuff was there, but it wasn't an exact clone. So it just didn't work, which happens sometimes. It was a very handy tool we had, but it failed sometimes on bigger sites. So not a big deal. Typically what I do in that case would just be to delete the actual site and then clone it as a new site versus cloning over top of an existing site. But yeah, I went in and I clicked, they had the two sites right there, the user of the two sites, and clicked delete. And they said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I said, "Of course I want to do this." And then clicked it and deleted the original site that the guy had been running for years and years. And so yeah, it was just the president of the university's blog that he'd been maintaining for 5 years or whatever it was just gone. And it was gone. And I had no idea how to tell the university this. And I pinged all of our sysadmins and I told them what I did. And I said, "Hey, can we restore this?" And they said, "Yeah, of course we can restore it. But the way the restoration process works is if we restore that one site, we have to restore the entire network. So any work that people have done on their sites for the last, 3 hours that I was doing this would just be lost." So, it was kind of like, do I tell them that this site is gone, or do I tell them that their users have lost like half a day's worth of work? And I know how to do it. And so finally I decided it would just be better to tell them the site was gone. And I went into the admins and got them on a Slack conversation and told them what had happened. And, luckily after like 3 hours of just sweating, being like, how am I going to explain this? This site is gone, all this stuff. It turned out they just didn't care. And it was like the president of the university was like, "Oh, I was just pretty much going to start a new site anyway. It's not a big deal." So happy story. But yeah, it was just 3 hours of just sweating and worrying and assuming I was going to be fired and all those things that go through your head. But I did, it started a new process of always did a WP export and made sure that all the files were, somewhere else before we actually deleted anything that became a stopgap. So it led to a good, change of procedure. So
I'd say that's a happy ending. Thank you for sharing that. That's extremely
Frightening.
relatable. I feel a lot of us have been there.
yeah, and I think those things always happen to me when I'm like 100% sure that I'm doing the right thing, right? Like
That's
yeah,
how it goes, right?
that is exactly the site that I want to delete. I mean, they had like, the very similar names, but it was just, it was like, and they even gave you the prompt, like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was 100% sure that that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's always when it happens in my life. And I'm 100% sure, like, I got nothing to worry about. I'm good to go. And then somebody's like, "Hey, you totally screwed that up." And
I mean, if you're like 85% sure, you're going to go check your work.
right?
Well, that's the thing. You look at that, you go, "What a dumb question." Of course, I'm sure, right? And that's I feel like for my story, like I've got little things like that have taught me like, no, you're never sure. Like you never be sure if it's important. Double check, triple check, because it's easy, and that doesn't always catch my mistakes, but it has helped. So
If you feel like you're sure,
doubt
that's your
that
warning
feeling.
Then you're
sign.
It's good in hosting and computing. Is it good in life for your self-esteem? Probably not. But
I'm trying to think.
I've got another one actually, now that we're talking about breaking things. So you all remember back when Flickr changed their pricing model from free accounts to like you get a specific amount of file storage for free on images. And Jim had always in his classes emphasized you want to offload your media to like another source. So because at Mary Washington you get like a small amount of data, amount of storage for your domains account, and I had like far exceeded it. I was at like 5 gigabytes and it's like 2 gigabytes for your students. So this was as I was a student, but when I started at Reclaim. at the same time. So I was an intern, and I go, well, what can we do? Like Flickr's like changing their pricing model. I can't afford to keep Flickr in the pro version, anything like that. And he's like, just don't worry about it. Like we had a conversation, and then I'm like, I'm not gonna worry about it. And so I delete my Flickr, and I'm like, cool. I lost all the images on my site because I forgot that I had embedded them in each post. And it actually trickled down to the community forums pages too, like because I had grabbed screenshots of cPanel and like our website, and in the documentation as I was writing it, embedded from Flickr into Discourse as I'm building the site or building the pages. And so I'm trying to scramble back to find all the broken images on like the like how to add add-on domains in cPanel, how do you go into the DNS editor? Like it's just basic cPanel like how-tos. But once my Flickr account was deactivated, all of them disappeared. So I have like everything from like 2017, 2018 on my site. I'm no longer offloading. I don't care. I'll carry the disk space with me if I move around, as I move around. But the embedded images on my blog are gone. So you'll see like older posts from like my Mary Washington classes don't have images because they're nowhere.
Oh.
So you see the little like photo, like the icon on the screen. It's pretty funny.
It's a bummer.
Oh boy. I'm thinking about I want this is the thing of I wonder what it was like for you guys on the other end, because this is a thing of when I was a domain of one's own admin. This is a thing that I messed up that did not impact me directly so much as I got an email from you guys saying, please don't do that anymore. Which is that I didn't totally understand the difference between Installatron backups and Jet backups. So for anyone who's watching this, basically Jet backups happen at the account level and you can roll back the entire account, and Installatron's backups happen sort of at a site installation level. So you can roll back a single installation. And we made a lot of use of those because we had like, here's a departmental account that has individual people's sites on it. And I was like, okay, it's cool. So we'll use Installatron backups. And more backups is better, right? And these are getting stored off site. So like, it's not affecting. We went away for like President's Day weekend or something. And I came back to an email from Chris that was like, hi, so you set unlimited backups and WordPress updated and you crashed Jet backup for everybody. So now all of Domain of One's Own schools have their Installatron backups stored on disk on the server, and you can only get to
Pilot. That was you.
That was me.
That's so good.
I was like, but why? I don't get it. And Chris was like, that's fine.
You don't have to get it. That's what's happening now. Oh man.
So yeah, you're welcome, everybody. That one's on me.
I think we're better off for it though, just
Yeah.
given the amount of WordPress sites that we run, and like WordPress 6.3.2 just came out
Today.
the other day, so that's rolling through servers now too. So definitely a good
Pilot. If
reason
it wasn't
for
you, it would have been someone else.
Yeah,
That's
for
true.
sure. Especially like the Installatron's backup system is handy, but it's far from perfect. Jet backup is the thing you want to use when possible. So it's a good outcome ultimately from a process perspective, kind of like Jason's, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like, oh, we can learn something here.
What you learn is that if you set unlimited backups, you will crash remote storage, and it's bad. So
Yeah.
don't do that. But yes, I'm glad that we've moved into a better age now, I guess.
I've got a quick one from, and this won't sound maybe for Reclaim folks as scary because of the way our stuff works. Like if say someone's having an issue with the Domain of One's Own server and we've tried a few things, but things are just like slow, we may reboot the server. It'll be back in like 60 seconds. Like it's a very quick process. So that's some background, but anyway, when I was so after graduating college, I taught band for a year, and then I decided I didn't want to do that, and I got hired in like entry-level support position at my alma mater, which was St. Norbert College. And I did a few different things at St. Norbert, but early on in support, I was curious about kind of just like learning whatever I could about working in IT, especially. And so I would there was this kind of older like sort of legacy system they had where folks could log into like a portal, employees and students could log into a portal and get access, like quick links to a few different college services, like internal college services. And the annoying thing about this is that this was a homegrown thing. And so from time to time, we would want to make, changes like, oh, this department wants to add a link to their part in this directory, you can call it. And at the time, the only person who would make those changes was my boss at the time, who used to be a web developer for the college, but moved into this sort of like customer service director kind of role. And he was I was like, yeah, how do we make that change? Is there like a process? He's like, there's no process. I'm like the only one who knows how to do this. Or other people could figure it out, but like I'm the only one who has the access and knows. So it just goes to me. And I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. Like, why don't we document this and, we could have a few people who can do it, right? You don't have to be editing a single link on for folks. And for perspective, what this was is it was just a simple, like, you would have to edit an HTML file and hand write out a link, whatever, right? And I was kind of like, cool, yeah, I could do that if you give me whatever access I need. He's like, I can. Here's the thing though, this is on the same, this is just on our web server, like on our main web server, the college homepage. It's in a particular directory and a separate virtual host. Like all the details didn't matter, and I didn't really understand them, frankly. But he was like, this is on that thing. So that's why I can't just give it to everyone. But, I've been kind of teaching you some of this stuff. And if you want to learn it, just be really careful. And like, we'll get you access to the college web server. And so I did that. And, I would make they did that. And I would make changes from time to time, and it was fine. Right. And this is at a time where I'm trying to learn a lot about like command line stuff. This web server that the college had, there was literally no graphic interface at all. So I'm like learning how to use like Vim as a text editor because that was the only way I could edit files on it. That Nano wasn't even installed. That's why I know how to use Vim, is because I was like, hey, can we install this easier text editor? And they were like, no. Good, thank you for your question. And so anyway, I'm doing this stuff, and I had I think for some reason I had like a few changes to make. And so I'm making these changes in between helping students that I would train who were like answering phones and stuff. And it was just a particularly crazy day. So I had this terminal up like for hours. And I was also doing some stuff in a different terminal window on my Mac. I was having issues with my Mac, so I want to reboot it. And for some stupid reason, I decided that I was like learning a lot about terminal stuff. So I was all about like, what can I do in the terminal? And so I was like, oh, I'll reboot my Mac from the terminal. And I definitely rebooted the college web server instead. And the problem with that was this was a pretty old, at the time, a pretty old server. And it did not come back in 60 seconds. Even if it did, 60 seconds for like a college's homepage to be down is rough. Like, you don't want that. It would take 10 minutes for this thing to come back for some reason. I, to this day, can't really understand why that's the case, but it did. Trust me, it did.
This feels like this sort of thing where I hope the valuable lesson is that everyone thank you for showing us, Taylor. Let's get something new and better.
That was already in the works, right? But the thing for me was, it was rough because I had to ask for this access. I was like, hey, I want to help you. You just need to give me access to this important thing, and I will treat it carefully. And mostly I did, except for this one thing. And so anyway, now I have a thing that I add to every single computer I use, where if I'm on my local computer, it changes the little color of your username and prompt to green. Green means my computer. Green means okay to reboot. And if you're not on my local computer, like SSH'd in, it won't be green, right? It'll be whatever color the server is, but it's usually not green. Actually, that's not true. Some are green. So anyway, it's important. I format the terminal on my computer to look different than most servers for this reason, to just double check, like, no, you're not rebooting your Mac. I also don't reboot my Mac from the terminal anymore for that reason. So second thing. But yeah, I felt really bad. No one was really mad at me. They're like, you rebooted it, it'll come back up. But we did, again, as I was like frontline, like phone support, I did receive a lot of calls from people being like, I can't access this page. I can't access this page. And I'm like, yeah, the server is rebooted. Or I rebooted the server, more accurately. And from all kinds of people, external communications department wanted to know why it was down for 10 minutes unplanned. It was not a lot of fun, but I learned a lot. And yeah, so those are the two reasons why maybe I've learned a lot since before coming to Reclaim, that I feel a little bit more comfortable with this stuff.
You know what? I feel like that gives us more faith in you.
Should it?
Rather than, if you'd never dealt with this kind of stuff. Same thing with Jason's story, like, all right, well, now we have better ways of going about things, and same with Meredith's and all that. And I think
is something we know won't happen again because you guys have such good experience.
Yes. The scarier the stories of things that have happened, the better, because
it's not going to happen again.
You know what though? That urge to just press that button sometimes, it never goes away. It doesn't matter how old you get. You're like, it could all just work out. I could just click this and everything's going to be fine. I'm going to save the day. I'm going to be the hero. I'm just going to click this. And then it doesn't work. And then you're like, oh no.
Sometimes it's low stakes too. I'm very like, obviously with customer stuff around here, if I'm gonna make a change, I'm making a backup before I do anything, right? But like, I'll say for our own stuff, say Reclaim TV, I wanted to make sure Owncast was upgraded now on the latest version, and I definitely just upgraded it 45 minutes before we went live, and that was stupid. You should not do that. But I'll do it to myself. Like, I'll make the mistake myself, right? That's just gonna ruin my day, no one else's day. So yeah, that never really goes away. I've just learned to make sure not to do anything that will make someone else's day bad.
That's true. I guess, yes, it's knowing when to push the button.
That's right. Well, I think we're all sufficiently shaken. Does anyone want to share anything else, or should we wrap it up?
I'm trying to think of like tech stories that I have.
Hey, I mean, if you've ever seen a ghost, I don't think any of us are gonna say no to that.
No, unfortunately not.
I've never seen a ghost. I felt a ghost once, but I never saw the ghost.
All right, let it rip.
You want to hear that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I went to school in Kutztown, Pennsylvania for a while, which is kind of outside of Philadelphia, maybe like hour, 15 minutes or so. Anyway, it's out in Amish country. And so, in the town, outside of the town, it just becomes farmland very quickly. And my friend Damien and a friend moved out. I can't even remember the name of the town. Anyway, they were out in the middle of nowhere, and they moved into this beautiful old stone barn that somebody had on their property, just renovated into a house. So just this huge space. It had like the largest fireplace in Berks County, Pennsylvania. Like you could fit like 6 people like standing in the fireplace. It was just this huge, beautiful place, but like very creepy at night. And so yeah, I stayed out there many times, but the first time I stayed out there was a loft, right? So it was a big ladder, and it went up to this big loft space. It was just dark and creepy up there. And so, everybody went to bed. They went into their bedrooms, and I was just kind of out in this main huge living room next to this big fireplace and sleeping on the couch. And I'm sleeping, and I just that feeling somebody's just like watching you, like there's somebody behind you. And so I thought my friend Damien was standing there, and I turned around and nobody was there. I'm like, okay, that's really weird. So went back to bed, or trying to go back to bed, and I just felt like there was somebody behind me, and I couldn't do it. And so I just finally, I figured it was up in the loft. I could just kind of feel it, right? Like somebody was watching me. Just that weird feeling. Anyway, I went to turn around because I was sure. Again, I was 100% sure that somebody was standing right behind me. Somebody come out, and when I went to turn around, my entire body just froze, right? Like this chill went down my spine. my body was physically paralyzed and I couldn't move. And I just like stayed like that. I don't know. It felt like a really long time. It was probably like 15 seconds or something like that, right? Could not move. When I finally was able to move my body again, I turned around. There was nobody there. And I promptly just got up off the couch and went in and got into bed with my friend Damien, who, we're both big dudes. We're both big, like, hairy college students. And he had a twin bed. But I was like, man, you're moving over and I'm getting in this bed with you right now because there's no way I'm going back up there till the sun comes up. So him and I cuddled for the rest of the night in his little twin bed. And
That's
just,
adorable.
that was
is
it. So
so
I don't know if that was actually a ghost or if it was just something in like my brain that like froze my body, but I'm convinced that was a ghost and it paralyzed me because it's what everybody says, right? You feel the chill and you can't move, and I felt the chill and I couldn't move. And so yes, I think that was my only ghost experience. It could have just been my brain messing with my body, but I'm 100% convinced that a ghost paralyzed me and then forced me to cuddle with a stinky hairy man.
That's incredible. No, that's a legit ghost story.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
I don't think we're topping that.
No, I think that's the note to end on. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the picture of me cuddling with another hairy guy is probably the scariest thing that anybody's going to hear about today. So
it's actually probably the sweetest ending.
Yeah.
Probably have. Very adorable. All right.
We're not
thanks,
ending on
everybody.
like, wow, we wiped a server or something like that.
Yeah. And then we got up and wiped the server.
Imagine ending on Jim's story.
I know.
Yeah.
And sleep tight, Reclaim users.
Bye.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody in the chat.
Yeah.
It's been
It's been fun. Thanks very much. And sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Except don't sleep because it's like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock on a Friday. But so, all right. See you later.